And joining us now to talk about much more about this is former federal prosecutor Danya. It's great to see you again, Danya. So today, this hearing live in front of the cameras, broadcast out, what will you be listening in for?
Well, in some ways, it's just an everyday kind of a scheduling conference. But this one obviously has a lot of complexity and intricacies to it. The kind of everyday piece of it will be how long the government anticipates the trial to last, with different configurations of defendants, how many exhibits they'll have, how many witnesses, and the like. I am quite curious to see what the district attorney has to say about that, given that her last RICO trial lasted for, I believe, 8 months, and it was months long to even select a jury. But then, of course, there's all this, what you could call infighting or conflict between the classes of defendants, some of whom are looking for a speedy trial, others of whom are looking to push it back. And so there'll be questions of different trial dates, whether the judge will grant certain of them a speedy trial, it seems he will, and then whether or not he'll sever those cases. So there's actually a lot in contest, and that will be very telling for the rest of the trial this afternoon.
Daniel, can you give us a sense of what this is like for the prosecution when you have several people asking for a speedy trial? Do they even have the numbers to try and deal with this? They could all be happening in a very similar time frame.
It could be very complicated. DA Fani Willis says that she does have the resources, she does have the man and woman power. She could go forward on October 23rd against all 19 defendants. That is impossible. I cannot imagine a world, I should say, it's highly unlikely. It's hard to conceive of this judge ordering the other defendants who would like to push this off. It's hard to see him forcing them to go to trial next month. So she may have to do this trial, a very complicated trial, in stages. And of course, that will be very taxing on her office's limited resources. It's hard to see that happening, even though certain of the defendants, Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesborough, are asking for this early trial date. They could also change their mind once they have the full breadth of discovery, which is said to be somewhere in the order of magnitude of 2 terabytes of information, or some 150 million pages. Yeah. So maybe they think they want that now and might change their minds later.
So there's also then the Mark Meadows factor in all of this. He's still waiting to hear, as Paula Reed was just laying out, to hear from a federal judge if his case is going to be moved out of Fulton County and into federal court. If that happens, does that upend all of this that we're just talking about here? I mean, does the Fulton County Superior Court judge then need to head back into court and figure something else out?
It could be. I happen not to think, and I've written about this, I don't think that Mr. Meadows has the better of that argument, although, as you said in the introduction, he has a better argument than some of his co-defendants, because in some ways, of course, everything that a White House chief of staff does could be said to be under color of his office or federal law. But I think here, when you're talking about intruding into the counting and tabulation of ballots, that is not something that is typically within the executive branch. So I think that's a long shot argument. But if he does win, it could upend very much of what's happening in state court. It could well be that some or all of the defendants are then removed as well to federal court. So that will introduce a whole other layer of complexity yet to be told.
For sure, which means stand by to stand by. It's good to see you, Danya. Thank you so much for coming in.